I will say I was a huge South Carolina baseball fan in high school.
Really?
Because that was when
Okay.
they peaked, back-to-back finals appearances, 2 College World Series titles. I mean, they were the best players in Houston were trying to go to South Carolina to play.
Wow. Yeah, that's really what, wanted to lead to is just kind of your overall knowledge of Gamecock baseball, memories, experiences. Because obviously, I could go on for days, but yeah, man, Ray Tanner had that thing humming. I mean, it really ever since he got there in 97. And I mean, from 98 to, when he retired, I mean, Gamecock baseball, top 5 program. They were looked at as like how a Vandy's looked at right now.
For sure.
Or a Florida's looked at. And I was curious from, obviously you being in Houston, but Gamecock baseball is doing what they were doing in Omaha. I mean, crazy, man. There's some studs on those teams, no doubt.
I have a funny story about South Carolina baseball. So me and my travel baseball team from Houston played in that Atlanta World Baseball, whatever, World Wood Bat Baseball, whatever it's called. And opening night, we're playing against I forget the guy's name, but he was from Virginia. He was a pitcher, and he was committed to South Carolina. And so we're 7 p.m. on field 1 in Atlanta at whatever field that's called. I forget.
Was it Tyler Johnson?
It could have been. He was throwing
righty. Was he a righty?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, then it had to be because we just had Johnson. And he's a Virginia guy. Throwing
fuzz. And meanwhile, my team from Houston's all pumped because South Carolina's assistant coaches are there watching them, and we're like, hey, we hit a homer against them. We go 2 for 3 with 2 doubles. Like we got a shot to get there. And there was probably 100 major league scouts, and it didn't matter. We were focused on the South Carolina recruiting coordinator. We're trying to show that guy what's up. Not the MLB scouts. We don't care about them right now. We want to go to South Carolina. So, but I mean, that was back when South Carolina was peak form, like you said, like kind of like a Vanderbilt. And I kind of look at South Carolina baseball now as, I'm gonna use a little analogy here, but kind of like Madden, the football game. Peaked in 2010, 2011, 2012, must have. And now it's just kind of the same thing year in, year out.
Now I'm taking offense because this year's Madden was trash.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. But I'm not saying South Carolina is going to be trash.
That's
but I'm just saying 2009 to 2012.
In comparison to the glory days.
Exactly. Yeah. That's peak South Carolina baseball. Yeah. And now it's like, it's a good game. I'm going to buy it every year for sure. I'm going to buy it. But I'm not going to play it as much as what I used to play it.
That sounds like Gamecock athletics at this point. Yeah. I'm still going to watch. I'm still going to buy it, but I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm not going to enjoy it. No, seriously. I want to get your take too. This is kind of an interesting question, but you being from Houston, being in the state of Georgia, again, you obviously probably have, I don't want to say biases, but SEC baseball, like you said, it's hard not to like really, because that's where the best baseballs play. Bottom line, just
and the best fans too. We got to appeal to the best fans.
Oh, and I saw you guys on social media on Twitter with the Mississippi State Arkansas stuff.
Stirring the pot a little
going
bit.
Back and forth. The players are getting into it. You got to love that. But I'm biased in the sense where I say Carolina Clemson baseball is the best rivalry in college baseball.
1,000%.
No questions. I was going to say, change my mind. If are there other, because like I try to think off the top of my head, like what are other great college baseball rivalries? And I mean, you can think of a few, but man, Carolina Clemson just
off the top of the head, it's Carolina Clemson. The 3-game series,
especially when you think about
and then floor field,
the games in Omaha. Like I think that's what makes a difference, bro.
Yeah. What was it? 2011 or 2012?
It was. I was gonna say it was 2010 when they beat them twice. It was 2010 when they beat them twice. And the thing that made that so special was they did that exact same thing in 2002. Just
really? With Khalil Green and them on Clemson.
Crushed them, dude. Crushed them. And then 2010, same exact thing. And it's been wild, man. Like I've had like Blake Cooper on, and man, Blake Cooper's comments on that series. He was like, I knew Clemson didn't want to play us. They did not want to play us. And he's like, we went out there and
they were the little brother, 1,000%.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Clemson football now and South Carolina football. Yeah. That's how it was in baseball back then.
Yeah. I mean, you think back to that 2010 from that point on run, like, again, I love getting the take of like a neutral fan. Yeah. That's like the craziest run ever. They won I think 22 straight postseason games. Like just from
they should have won three titles in a row.
The randomness of baseball, like the fact that even happened is just.
I don't know if it'll ever happen again.
I don't think how could it? How could it?
Unless like Vanderbilt just continues what they're doing, maybe. But I don't know. Another crazy part about college baseball, and it doesn't have to do with South Carolina, but I think it was 2013, 2014, 2015 when Vanderbilt and Virginia matched up back-to-back years in the finals. Like that might not ever happen again either. So
yeah, that's a good point. Hey, we'll move to the current landscape of of baseball. Do you have any or familiarities with Mark Kingston, or like are you like had you heard of him before he got the job at Carolina?
Oh, for sure, 1,000%. Because he was at like South Florida and Tulane. I think he was a recruiting coordinator, and there was another school that he
was at Miami. He won a
Miami,
College World Series title, I think, with or whatever. He was on that College World Series team with Miami. I'm just curious because obviously, again, this is a big year for Mark Kingston coming in, I think, his 4th season. You had a super regional, missed the postseason, and then COVID season, which I think last year's Carolina baseball team, I think they were hitting their stride right going into SEC play, which, obviously sucked for us all. I know, obviously, specifically you guys covering college baseball. But, we already talked a little bit, but we'll dive into it. Overall thoughts on Carolina baseball. Again, I'm not asking you to go down the roster, 1 through 37 or how many guys they got right now. But like you said, I think it's very evident where South Carolina baseball fits in right now. But I think they're getting back to where they were. I think they're getting closer. And again, it's really tough because I tell fans like, hey, Carolina might go 500 in the SEC this year and be really, really good. Like,
we actually talked about that on the last podcast, how I would rather see a team go 500 in the SEC than go 5 or 6 games above in the ACC. Yeah. And it's just like that's the way my mindset works. And so going back to last season, I thought that South Carolina team proved a lot of people wrong because I saw some preseason predictions where they were projected to finish last or second to last in the SEC. And that's just not what team they were. I mean, they had the starting pitcher 1-2 punch with Mulzinski and remind me of the guy's name.
Yeah, Thomas Farr.
Yeah.
And then you had Jordan in the Sunday. They had a good rotation last year.
Good rotation. And they had something that they had last year that they didn't have in previous years was a good mix of speed and power. So they had guys that were stealing bases. A couple of guys, I forget their names. I'm not good with
Noah Myers. But I was going to say, you also had the SEC's home run leader, Wes Clark. Well, had 8 at the break.
I was about to get to Wes Clark. Wes Clark besides maybe like obviously Spencer Torkelson and Craig from Wake Forest and a couple other guys, I thought he was probably the best pure power bat in the college baseball. Right. I mean, the ball just explodes off his bat. And so I thought they had enough last year to go above 500 in the SEC, which anytime you go above 500 in the SEC, you got a good chance to host a regional. So it's a shame that season didn't play out, but I was looking down the roster before the show here today, and I do like the mix of JUCO bandits that they have this year.
Dude, Kingston has crushed JUCO.
And that's the way you have to do it in SEC.
Especially early. I think especially early when, man, college baseball recruiting, it's so ridiculous, like how early it starts. And I think – and you look at South Carolina as a whole, they've done very well, even going back to Tanner, even going back to those 10, 11, 12 teams, they've done very well with JUCO guys.
And the best part about recruiting JUCO wise in college baseball is it gives you a chance to get old fast and stay old for the long period. Because those JUCO guys will come in, they'll play every day, and you got the freshmen and sophomores competing for jobs underneath them. And by the time they become juniors and sophomores, there's a whole new juniors and seniors. There's a whole new freshman and sophomore class behind them. And it's an opportunity to get old fast and stay old. So if those JUCO guys this year have a big impact, you're going to be able to see this team, be very, very good for a long period of time.
Yeah. And this team this year, I was going to say preseason ranked 18th in the D1 baseball top 25, picked to finish 3rd in the East. I'll ask you, is that too high, too low, overrated, underrated, like right in the right spot? Like what's your overall take on those rankings and where they're getting picked to finish?
I'm a big believer that preseason polls don't mean anything, right? Like it's fun to look at, but
it gives us something to talk about.
Yeah, it gives you something to talk about. But if I was a coach, being ranked in between like 12 and 20, somewhere in there is exactly where I want to be to start the season. You don't have these high expectations that you have to fill, but at the same time, it gives your guys on the team something like, hey, we are pretty good. We're going to be able to compete with these guys and have something to prove. So I think 3rd in the East, though, is right about where I think they're going to finish. Obviously, I think Florida is the best team in the country. And, those guys, if they stay healthy, are going to be
their lineup is just stupid.
It's stacked. And the pitcher, I mean, their starting rotation is probably the best in the country besides Vanderbilt. I think 3rd is a good spot to be to. I think it's good enough to host a regional. And once you get into postseason play, it's all about winning one game at a time. So, but we'll see. I mean, like I said, preseason rankings, I don't think.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it's 18th is high enough to feel good about yourself, but low enough to have a chip on your shoulder.
1,000%.
I don't know if you saw this, and I tell people this is why I love South Carolina baseball so much. Kingston was asked about that. He said, quote, "I'm not going to blow these expectations out of proportion. The expectation here is to win a national championship. We make sure guys know what the expectations are here. We want to go to Omaha. We want to win a national title. I want our guys to feel like number 18 is underrated for us right now." So there you go.
Yeah. But it's still high enough where they're like,
right. You know, you have a good squad. You know, you're not a top 20 team on accident. You got some pieces. You got a good squad. Like I said, we can talk about just the whole national landscape of college baseball. Cause again, like you mentioned, Florida, Vandy, those are really going to be the talks of the town when it comes to, you know, the national landscape. Again, it's crazy. You hate to leave out the other conferences because I think of like Louisville, Miami, like they're some really good teams. But, dude, you just go down the list of the SEC teams like Florida, Vandy, Arkansas, Mississippi State, LSU. I mean, it's just we could have an all SEC College World Series.
You really could. And it wouldn't surprise me one year if it actually happens.
Yeah. It's like the SEC tournament.
Yeah. Like a couple of years ago, I think there was 8 SEC hosts, and they were all matched up where there was a chance if they all ended up winning, they were going to be in the College World Series. But I don't think it ended up playing like that. But if you go look at the SEC as a whole, right, there's not one weekend that you can take off. Maybe Kentucky this year. I don't think they're going to be as good. But you look at like the bottom of the SEC, you got teams like Auburn and Texas A&M and Missouri who, if you blink, they could beat you 2 out of 3 in a weekend.
Dude, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy you say like Auburn because they were so good like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
I mean,
what's the College World Series
nasty.
2 years ago?
Yeah, I mean they were nasty.
And so it's crazy to like. I know that there's going to be some ACC fans probably listening to this and Big 12 fans because they have some good teams in those conferences. But I mean, you just can't match weekend for weekend what the SEC has to bring in college baseball. I mean, it's probably equivalent to like a high A baseball season, like professionally. And so that's why every year you see 4, 5, 6 SEC teams hosting super regionals and 4 or 5 of them getting to the College World Series.
Yeah.
And
who are the teams outside of the SEC landscape that you're highest on? I mean, they're like, you know, if we're not talking SEC, like I said, give love to all of the other conferences. I mean, who are the teams for you personally that jump out?
Yeah, Texas Tech is one for sure. I like Texas Tech this year. I definitely like teams like UCLA. They're good year in, year out. I think
is Texas back, by the way? I see they're ninth.
Hey,
is Texas back?
We talked about that on the first episode this year. I think they are, man. I think what David Pierce has going on over there is just unbelievable. And the thing with Texas, though, is every year they get these high expectations, and then about halfway through the season, I feel like their players and coaches are like, man, we let them down. We let them down. And there's always just a negative vibe with Texas baseball, just because their expectations every year is so high. But I think Texas will probably compete for a Big 12 championship. Texas Tech, we've seen in Omaha probably for the last 6 years, something like that. You got Louisville, who I think is going to be very good this year in the ACC. Miami was young last year and the year before that, and they had a lot of success. So let me try to think. Big Ten wise, I mean, maybe Michigan, we'll see. But I think that good class that they had, everybody's left so far. And then besides that, like we got some mid-majors that I think are going to be pretty solid this year, like Coastal Carolina, obviously. I barely even count them as a mid-major.
East Carolina.
Carolina is always good.
How about UC Santa Barbara at 11th? That's just like
Santa Barbara was nasty last year. So Santa Barbara had a cool thing happen to them 2 years ago where they were projected to host a regional, right? And in order to host a regional, you have to have lights at your stadium, and they've never had lights there. And so they went in and put lights up just in case they hosted a regional, and now they think they're still up. So
jeez, love that. Love that.